Welcome back to Team G503 here on YouTube. I am Scott Schiller for Ron Fitzpatrick Jeep Parts. In this video, the last one we did, we were attaching the throttle and choke cables to the carburetor. And to kind of finish up the carburetor assembly, in this video, I'm going to show you some tricks to get those rubber seals to go on the crossover tube and the top there, where you've got your air horn come over the top of the carburetor there. They're not really hard to put on, but a lot of folks ask and do have difficulty with this. So I figured I'd make a video, show you some tricks and tips, make it really easy for you. Let's dive right in. Going to be installing our seals here on the air horn and crossover tube on the carburetor assembly. And here's my air horn. I painted that all up, put it in a box. That's a little rusty on the inside again, so I'll have to clean that up before I install it. And I've got my crossover tube seal here. And then I've got a couple of clamps. You only need one for this installation, but I've got the two out here on the bench just in case. And then that's our seal to the air horn. You'll want to have a hair dryer that works, and you'll want a little bit of Dawn detergent or some sort of liquid dish soap that we can use. It'll ease the installation of these two seals. Let's take a look here at the top of the carburetor, and you're going to notice that on that top opening there, there's three little nubs that are cast into that stick out, probably maybe like 1/8 of an inch only, but those are going to be important. Those are actually the areas that the seal here and the inside of that radius will lock into to keep that stationary inside there. And we're going to install it just like that with that notch cut out over the cover. I'll show you that close up here as we get more into this video. Now, it's not that cold out here in Charleston, South Carolina, but I'm going to show you a little trick here that's going to make this easy for you to manipulate this seal. I'm just going to take the hair dryer, and I don't have this on the high setting. I've got this on the medium setting. It's still pretty warm, and all I'm going to do is just kind of heat that seal up until it's warm in my hand. It's going to make it more pliable for us to be able to easily install that onto the carburetor. I've actually heard stories of people tearing these as they put them on, and they get really frustrated with it. Or if you're trying to install this during a colder application, it would be really difficult. Again, just heating this up a little bit is going to make it really easy for us to wrap that onto the top side of this carburetor here and around those nubs I just showed you. Now, that cutout that I just pointed to you, that goes in line with the area of the cover there, or the float cover that's going to line up over the top. I'll show you that closer too, but you're going to want to just kind of work this down while it's still warm and get it in place and make sure those three nubs are locked into that little ring there that's on the bottom. Just kind of gently work it back and forth, because ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to want to peel that backwards down and install our air horn in it. So you want to make sure that that's locked into place. Here's where the liquid detergent comes in handy. I'm just going to put a little bit on my finger here, and then I'm going to smear it with a light film over that part of the crossover tube right there. It's just going to act as a lubricant. It's not oily, and what will happen eventually is it will dry out, but it'll enable you to have some sort of lubricant between there to put it on mostly, but in the future, if you had to take it off, it also will still act as a lubricant. So just put a little film around that. Now, here's where the fun's going to begin. This is the crossover tube to air horn rubber seal. It's part number A1451. It's really thick, so we're going to heat that up the same way we did. Now, this is going to take a little longer to get warm because, as you can see, it's so much more thick than the seal that goes there on the top of the carburetor. So after we get this all nice and warm, we're going to go ahead and slip it onto the air crossover tube there. The idea with this seal is to push it past its installation place, and so we're going to push this on to the air crossover tube there, and we're going to push it on to the point where it's almost flush or a little bit past the actual lip of the metal tube itself. Like I say, even if this is warm and even though I've got that lubed up, it's still a nice snug tight fit, and we're going to have to manipulate this a little bit. You can see where my finger is there. I've got it pushed past maybe 1/16 of an inch. You don't have to go that much further past, because we're just going to have to bring it back onto the end of the air horn. Okay, now here's where it's all going to come together. I've taken my hair dryer and I've heated those pieces of rubber back up so they're nice and warm. And then I'm going to take my air horn now and I'm going to slip it inside the tube there, and I'm going to wiggle it back and forth. Now, if you've put one of these together before, it is a snug fit. You can use a pair of needle nose pliers or some sort of tool to just lightly bring that metal in and out, so you want a nice snug fit there. And then you line it up with the top there, the opening, and I have not put a clamp on here on purpose because you can work back and forth and just slide that piece of the air horn in between those pieces of rubber and that top of that carburetor, which those openings and those ears on the air horn are supposed to connect. And once you've got that all smooth, just make sure that you've got your air horn seal there all the way installed on the bottom, and then metal to metal on the carburetor to the air horn. Now we're just going to take that piece there, that seal, and slide it back so it's about 50-50 split on the joint that we've made there. Now, I've heard of some folks putting the clamps on those pieces of rubber before they install that. I'm not going to do that in this case. I find it's a lot easier to manipulate these pieces of these seals of rubber without those clamps on. Again, it makes it a little bit more difficult to put the clamps on, but it's not a big problem. I'm going to show you that here in a second. Okay, so now we're going to take our air horn to carb clamp. That's part number A281, and I'm going to make the opening go towards the fender. This is a reproduction that I've got here. I do have the original over on the bench. I just wanted to make sure that the reproduction was the same as the original, and I did paint them both back up. So now we're going to remove the screw and the nut that's on the clamp, and then we're going to gently expand it so it just slips around the outside edge there of our seal. You don't want to open up this too far and put a kink in it, and you really don't have to. Just keep manipulating it. The metal's quite malleable until you get to the openings there that just will go on the outside there. Now there's 2 grooves in that seal that will reference you to the place where that clamp goes, and you want to make sure that your air horn is pushed all the way down before you go ahead and install the screw and the square nut there that's on the back, and then we can tighten it down. Once we get that installed, just finger tight, but we'll go ahead now. We'll go ahead and take a flathead screwdriver and we'll just tighten that screw up. Now you don't want to over tighten this. You want it snug enough where it starts to compress the rubber itself and that the air horn cannot be pulled off the top, but you don't want to crush the side. The last clamp that we have to install is the clamp crossover tube, and that's part number A1515. And I'm just going to open this up a little bit. You see how this is really a neat design, and you want to put the screw there towards the top. These are like the originals. They're not like the ones that go on the corrugated piece there, and they're really kind of sharp. These also go onto your axles for your brake lines in the back as well. They're the same style clamp. So we're going to go ahead and open that up. This is a little bit easier to open than the one that was on the carb horn because the material, of course, is thinner. And we're going to get this all lined up there, about 50-50 split on those openings in that clamp. This is a little bit more difficult to do too, so I'm going to use a pair of pliers here to hold this together. This seems to have a little bit more of what I'll call a springiness than that larger one did. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my special German-made pliers. I'm not a tool salesman, but I do know one, and he sells these, and they are absolutely fantastic. I'm just going to give it a gentle squeeze on both sides there, and what I'm trying to do here is get enough of the screw past the boss there where the nut goes on the end, and just enough where I can get the nut into a couple of threads. And after I do that, that little tang that's on top there will hold that screw in place as I go ahead and take my flathead screwdriver and then clamp this one down fully. Again, you want to position that so that I'll call it the opening there, would kind of give you a 50-50 split on the joint that we made there between the air horn and the crossover tube. And I've got the top there about a 90-degree angle, so straight up and down. I'm just going to hold that tight, give myself a little bit of room there, so when I do clamp it down, it will be on the top. I guess I'm a little fussy about things like this. It's just you want everything in your engine compartment looking nice and tidy. So after we get this all tightened down, that will be the installation of seals, and they will keep air leaks out, and they will also keep debris and dust out of your carburetor. We'll give everything one last check, and we're good to go. Thank you for watching, and a special thank you to my friend Greg McKinney there near Chicago, Illinois. He sent me this really cool Hawaiian t-shirt here. It's got the M38A1 on here. It's all over pattern front and back. Greg, this is awesome. I don't know where you guys find this stuff, but this is really cool, and I will cherish this shirt. All right, my friends, if you'd like to subscribe, you can do so by clicking that subscribe button. Also hit that bell so you will get notified when we release new videos here at Team G503. Until next time, keep it safe and happy Jeeping.